Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Jack with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, we're gonna be talking about how to build strong and stable feet so that you can get back to barefoot. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Thursday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve the aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life. And it doesn't get much better than that. So go ahead and jump on it. Ready? Let's go ahead and get into this one. All right guys, so the topic of the day is how to build strong and stable feet so that you can start to make your way back to barefoot. And what we're talking about is getting yourself to be able to walk around in your house regularly barefoot once again, or even outdoors a little bit, or just once again going back to our natural state where we have that stability and strength to be able to walk around our house barefoot without having to have on a pair of slippers, socks, shoes, you name it, just going back to the way that we were designed. And if you look at people's feet these days, it is one of the most dysfunctional areas that we see. There are bunions everywhere from the shoes that we are wearing, and there are feet that are completely flattened out, feet that turn out. These are all things that actually have a lot to do with our overall motor patterning and control in our bodies, and can cause aches and pains upstream or even directly at the foot itself because of weakness at the foot and a lack of mobility there. And just as a refresher, when we talk about mobility, we're looking at the overall stability of it, the flexibility of it, and the range of motion of the joints. So if any of those things are lacking in your foot and ankle, then those are going to be things that start to change your mechanics from the ground up, which is a very bad thing that we do not want to happen. Unfortunately, like I said, our footwear is causing a lot of the problems with narrow toe boxes and too much actual thickness and padding to the bottom of the foot there, where we no longer have a connection to the ground. There's a heel drop where we actually have such a raise in the heel that our Achilles is shortening. So we're seeing all these adaptations to do with footwear. And what I'm going to be doing today is taking you through some of the exercises that you need to start with to begin to restore intrinsic foot strength so that we can get a good base to, first of all, make sure that we're walking around with a stable foot and not just a flat board slapping the ground. And from there, we're also going to talk about other factors a little bit more in depth, such as what our footwear should look like, or when we do have to wear footwear, what that should look like, and how to transition into being barefoot more often and more regularly. So, ready? Let's go ahead and start to look at some of the exercises that you can do on a daily basis to regain strength and mobility in your foot. All right, here we go. So we're going to start by crossing one leg over the knee of the other and interlacing the fingers of the opposite hand to the foot here. And what I want to do is work my ankle supination here while creating a passive splay at the toes. And what I'm doing is just kind of going in and out of neutral to supinated, neutral to supinated. But the key here is getting my fingers as deep as I can interlaced with those toes. So you'll see me occasionally re-grip, try and slide in a little bit deeper and open up the space here. Now, this is really tight for you to begin with. Don't worry about it. Get what you can in there. So even if it's just your fingertips to start that you're able to get in between those toes, start there, and eventually you can slide a little bit more finger in between there, and hopefully at some point you will be able to get your whole hand interlaced with those toes. Next, we're going to work pronation with that same passive splay. So I'm using the same side, hand and foot here so that I can crank the foot into a pronated position while keeping those fingers interlaced from the top side here. So we're working the splay from both the bottom position and the top. Bottom will feel more comfortable at first than the top, but we do need the mobility from both sides here because that also gives our ability to bend at the foot itself and rotate at the foot around the metatarsals there. Once we've done that, we want a little bit of intrinsic foot strength here by being able to extend the toe, the great toe, by itself under control. Now this is one that we lose a lot of. And we need to be able to separate that out from the actual extension of the smaller toes. So we're gonna go between great toe extension and the remaining toes extending there. Now, if you don't have that control over great toe extension, or if you don't have great toe extension to begin with, you might have a bunion, and that could be something that is really a part of the fact that you've lacked that great toe extension. So it's kind of the great toe extension was probably missing first, and then the bunion was a result of that great toe extension lacking there. Next, I'm going into an active splay. So here I'm separating the toes under the control of my own strength of the foot without using my fingers to space here. And I just want to kind of hold that and play with different angles of my foot, so I can angle into pronation, I can angle into supination again, and keep on working in those two things around the ankle, trying to control while keeping splay with the foot strength. Now remember, these are things that you could do multiple times a day whenever you have available time. Sitting at a desk, you can play with them. Whatever, watching TV, you can play with them. This last one here, I'm doing a little bit of a toe drag. So I want to reach my metatarsals out, and then I'm dragging everything back toward my heel. You can actually see my arch increase as I drag back each time. So this is active arches. And here, once again, building the strength of the arches back. I used to not have much of an arch in that right foot, and now we're seeing that restored. All right, so after we start to actually strengthen the foot from the inside out and intrinsically build strength, which should help us start to restore our base overall. One, opening up space between the toes and widening that toe box once again. Two, restoring the arch to our foot, and overall increasing the range of motion that we have at the foot itself. When we start to do all that multiple times a day and have control or regain control over the foot, then we can also start to do something that's very simple as far as implementing a little bit of barefoot time in our days. So even if you don't jump right into full barefoot all the time, which is what I don't recommend actually, because you will say that it's not working, your feet are too painful and it's just hurting you. What you need to do is gradually work your way back into more barefoot time. But one of the best ways to practice it in the beginning is actually doing your strength training barefoot. So when you are lifting weights, working out, doing body weight workouts, doing your stretching routine, all that time is a great time to spend barefoot, because the gym is our lab. We're actually practicing movement and coordination in that time frame. And as we're practicing those moves and coordination, if we are barefoot, that allows us to actually practice that movement and coordination and that motor patterning while we have a true connection to the ground. And now we can start to actually translate those exercises that we've been doing here into a functional movement itself, such as squatting, hinges with our deadlifting, or a lunge type pattern. And if you're worried about dropping a weight on your foot when you're doing barefoot workouts, don't. That's the most ridiculous thing ever. First of all, control the weight so that you don't hurt yourself. That's an important thing to be able to do. But second of all, even if you dropped it on those Nikes, I'm pretty sure your toe would still break regardless. So if you haven't dropped the weight on your Nikes, you probably won't drop a weight on your barefoot either, and it is deemed safe to work out barefoot. It is one of the best ways you will start to build up strength in this way. So once you start to actually build up strength in your workouts, and you can wear your shoes and whatever you need to transfer out of it from there in your regular day for now, gradually making our way out of it, we want to make sure that we're starting with that strength training and then starting to implement it other places. So throughout your day, walking around the house a little bit more, gradually, once again, I will use that term. So we're getting more barefoot time in just regularly by walking around the house more. Once we get a little bit more comfortable in the house being barefoot, let's start to venture outside a little bit more barefoot and try some different surfaces, getting out on the concrete, maybe a little bit of gravel, that's okay, getting out in the grass barefoot. Of course, this is always based on the conditions that you have around you, and if it is cold, you might venture out for a quick second in the cold with those bare feet, but you know, obviously being aware of what your conditions are, where you're not going to scald your feet on blacktop, or you're not going to freeze your feet out there for a 10-minute period in some Arctic conditions. So being realistic, but still transferring that out to where we're expanding not only our surfaces that we're on, but also just the time in general, going from inside to outside. So gradually building that up, and I think I said gradual enough here, but you should get the hint at this point. Then from there, eventually, and this might be a long time down the road, you can start to play with things like barefoot running actually. And once you get used to those different surfaces and those different textures on your feet, then you are able to actually handle that a lot better with more impact. But what you'll see is that your gait should actually change from the ground up just by changing the intrinsic strength of the foot, and the intrinsic strength of that foot will change the overall mobility upstream at the knee, at the hip, and how you move will function overall differently as long as you are working at those things consistently here. All right, and I already kind of brought up the topic of footwear, but once again, I want to just kind of talk on this a little bit more in depth because it is so important to the shape and structure of your foot. If you are in shoes that are restricting your toes, once again, that narrow toe box is something that can really negatively affect your balance overall and be causing those bunions. If you have a raised heel, so this could be boots, this could be high heels, this could be some running shoes anymore that have that shape to the bottom of the shoe. Those are all things that can actually be causing a shortening of the Achilles, which is killing our ankle mobility at that point of time, and then destroying us from the bottom up. Our actual connection to the ground is being killed by that. We are wearing shoes a lot of times for the actual, dare I say, just the aesthetic appeal of them and not the functional purpose of them. Yes, you're being fitted by people for some of these shoes. They work for that company. That doesn't mean that these are the optimal way. They might fit your foot currently, but that is simply feeding into the dysfunction that you currently have down there. And we need to take that the opposite direction and change your foot structure overall so that you can actually see a difference in how your foot connects to the ground and the control that you actually have over your feet. It is one of our most sensitive areas in our body. We have so many neurons going there because it is our connection to the floor. It is where we actually get our first feel here in our vertical upright position. So we have that connection. We have a lot of neurons going there, but if we take that away through thick padding, we are losing a lot to send right back up to our brain and tell us, hey, we're on an uneven surface. There's so much information going up through the feet that it is no wonder that we end up with more falls and weak legs down the road because of dysfunction from the feet in the way up they build. And if you need a little bit more to look into on this, feel free to look up the practice of foot binding. So this was an old Chinese practice where they would literally break and bind the feet, and it was once again an aesthetic thing or a show of class that they were doing it for. Now this had proven to show weakness, muscle atrophy up the legs later in life, more breaks from falls up later in life, things like that that are occurring because of the function of the feet being off. And it is, in a way, a minor form of foot binding when we wear shoes simply because we like how they look and they don't have functional purpose and an ergonomic build to them where they really actually allow us to have the protection that we need, but not at the same time take away all our sensory activity from the foot there itself. All right, and the last thing that I do want to mention is the function of our hip and our foot together working as a team through the knee. So the structure of our leg is designed to have torsion sent through the system. So our hip generates torque and our foot is designed to generate friction against the surface that it is connecting to. And if we have those two forces, we have torsion through the leg, which is kind of like wringing out a towel. So it creates a stable leg overall. Now, that torsion can only occur if I truly understand how to use torque at the hip appropriately, and if I can actually generate surface area to generate friction against the floor. If I have an unstable foot and ankle and it makes me roll or lose connection with the ground because I have weakness around the foot and ankle itself, then that is my loss of friction. When the hip externally rotates, my foot should still be able to grab the floor, and if I don't have the foot mobility, aka those exercises that we showed earlier, then there's a good chance that there's going to be loss of connection and an imbalance in that foot. Now, when we have that connection to the floor, we should technically have 3 points of contact: our first metatarsal, our fifth metatarsal, and our heel. So realistically, my toes can pick up from the ground while I'm connecting to the ground through the metatarsals and the heel there. So we have a tripod foot on both sides, and that shows that I have an active foot. But without external rotation at the hip, I won't have my arches and I won't be able to actively grip the floor with the foot in the same way. Otherwise, I just have a flat foot without any torsion through the system of the leg and a less stable leg overall. So if we're looking for improving the overall system so that you can be more strong upstream as well through running and just moving out throughout your day and your mobility in general, then we need to know that we need torque at the hip, and we need torsion through the leg, and we need friction at the foot. And all those things come together in that system to make it the most stable as possible. So the hips are important as well. If you lack range of motion at your hip or control around the hip, that can also be a factor limiting your ability to go back to barefoot. All right, and there you guys have it. How to build a strong and stable foot so that you can start to make your way back toward barefoot the way we were designed. And it's all about that intrinsic strength and keeping those things in the back of your mind, such as what your footwear looks like and how your hip is controlling the rest of the leg as well. So put it all together. It will take some time, but if you're practicing it regularly, you will see some big changes, I can promise you that. If you guys like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend. You know that they need a little nudge in that barefoot direction as well, and this could be it for them. So go ahead and pass that along. If you have any questions about anything that I talked in today's video, make sure you do drop a comment down below, or just simply say hi. I love to talk to you guys, so let me know what you're thinking down there, and I would love to connect with you. And last but not least, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Thursday I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve the aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall improve your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life so that you can go about moving happily. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. I will catch you guys next week.